what they call a 1,000-year life. Taking off now, the P-51 Mustangs. I'll be right back after I get a rain jacket. I'll be right back with you. The C-47 being flown by the sun. Told you about the P-40 Warhawk and how the British came to Dutch Dindleton with North America to use the higher altitude. And so some motor car companies, Detroit, Michigan, took over the bombers, fighters, trainers, liaison, cargo, whatever. 35,000 years. According to most of the sources that I found, that number increased to 275,000. Done by the people who stayed here to support our men fighting in the Pacific and European theaters. The Mustang could reach speeds of over 400 miles per hour. It was also the type of aircraft flown by America's first African-American squadron, the Tuskegee. Jeff Linebaugh is flying this airplane, and as you look at the Mustang, as Jeff Linebaugh walks it down the line, look at how far apart the wheels are on the main engine. They're very far apart compared to the skin of which is the very first headache. These airplanes were much easier to handle on the ground than the trainers were. Still remains flyable today. Mustang design, they had trouble with turbulent airflow into what was then the intake tube for the cooler to cool the oil and cool the engine. He was a top graduate, I should say, from pilot training and instructor pilot school, receiving awards for being the instructor of the pilot. And they headed across the English Channel to the 5 beaches of Normandy, where the largest amphibious Indiana State University. Corsair. They took a Corsair, they moved the pilot up a few inches in the seat, changed the canopy to canopy similar to what was on the in the Supermarine Spitfires, and the carrier then flew an oval path to the carrier with a pilot looking through the downward crook in the wing to see the landing area. The B-25 Mitchell bomber is on the ground. We'll have a chance to see it come by, taxi back to its parking place. It comes from the Tri-State Warbird Museum, just out of Cincinnati. And this 1900 horsepower. Last weekend, I was at an air show on Long Island at Jones Beach. We had close to 400,000 people at that show. But what we got to see on Long Island was a museum called the Cradle of Aviation Museum. Because on Long Island, there were 3 variants. And interestingly, the Avenger that you see here today, because of its production by Grumman of the TBM to General Motors, and they called it the TBM. Designation for Grumman for about 4 or 4.5 hours until it was picked up by a rescue submarine. That young naval aviator actually built more of the Grumman designed in the war, in his fight at the Battle of Midway. Take a look at this. Its big radial engine, the ships to support our men over there. So Nicholas Thomas, he did not want to build somebody else's airplane. Later, as legend has it, said, why don't we take one of our Rolls-Royce Merlin engines that we have in our Spitfires and put it on the front of the Mustang airframe. They did. And the 4,000 built, 4 huge engines, a marvel of technology from 1941. This is the B-29 Super Fortress. The B-29, there had been some very big bombers in the United States military that were put together. The B-25 that we saw earlier, I believe, had a 69-foot wingspan. Then
the dust covers, but you're still responsible for his work. After you've measured the pressure in both tires, give the gear a visual check.
And that is just the beginning of one of those quintessential. Doug Rosenthal is actually capable of flying everything we see. But those primary, basic, and advanced training scenarios electrical system in the intercom, and in order for the instructor who sat in the back seat to communicate with the student in the front seat, he would have a funnel attached to a rubber hose that went through to the front seat to little ear cups in the leather flying. This one in 1934. After qualifying the steermen, they move on to
Just listen to the sound of these Pratt & Whitney 1,200 horsepower, 14-cylinder radial engines.
And what is very cool about the two... Oh, this is a sight. Oh, yeah. On June, those who served in World War II have said that the real heroes of World War II are the ones who didn't. As the aircraft circle around, I met one of the very capable fighters, but British could not keep up with the production demands that the Royal Air Force needed. And so the aircraft here was a 1930s design, but it was actually our motor on the front, a radial piston engine. As we launched the aircraft for a later segment of the show, let's listen to these. At the first part of the war, involved about 75 hours of flight training, and it took about 12 years to wash out, or sadly get injured or killed in training. He would then move on to basic training with a more complex aircraft, a basic trainer called the BT-13 from Vultee Aircraft. with a more powerful motor and some other systems that Aircraft Specialty Services, Camguard, Advanced Engine Oil Supplement, and Univair Aircraft Corporation, and Tulsa Aircraft Management. Tora Aircraft headed back toward Texas. Or maybe on to their next show. Maybe they're just going to deliver aircraft to the next show location. Gas. All of that takes about a third of a mile to get off the ground. Listen to the sound. Imperial Japanese Navy on December 7th of 1941. It took one day for Congress to declare war on Japan, and because Japan and Germany had a non-aggression pact, it was also an attack against, we went to war with Germany, December 8th of 1941. 100 horsepower motors.
That are still very similar today. As our B-25 I'll play for you one of my favorites because I'm a little hungry.